All right, let's get back to our top political stories. The race for the White House, our first post-debate poll numbers for the Democrats and Donald Trump saying the immigration policies would have prevented 9/11. He says he's very tough on illegal immigration. Joining us now, Kristen Soltis-Anderson. She's a Republican pollster, columnist for the Daily Beast, and Angela Rye, political strategist, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. Ladies, thanks to both of you for joining us. Kristen, let's talk about why is Donald Trump having this battle with Jeb Bush right now over whether former President George W. Bush could have effectively done more to prevent 9/11.
Donald Trump thus far has focused very heavily on domestic issues, and this is him sort of trying to carve out a unique position for himself in the Republican Party on foreign policy and national security. What's curious is that he's doing it by attacking a figure who's very popular still within the Republican Party, at least, George W. Bush, and doing it in a way that is sort of to the extreme of where even most Democrats wouldn't really go on this particular issue. But in doing so has kind of baited Jeb Bush into feeling the need to defend his brother, which has put Governor Bush in an awkward position in this campaign.
Well, you're looking at it as a Democrat, and I agree, George W. Bush, among a lot of Republicans, very likable, very popular, very much favorable, yet that's not translating to Jeb Bush into numbers in these polls. He's not doing well right now.
No, Jeb Bush is not doing well, and we have seen continuously any candidate that comes after Donald Trump is on the losing side. Jeb Bush himself has experienced that several times so far leading up to this Iowa primary. I don't know what else will happen before.
Why is that?
I think the reason is because Donald Trump plays by a totally different set of rules. He effectively came out and said, if I had been president on September 10th, 2001, 9/11 never would have happened. And he doesn't really have to explain how or why. He can just get to say, if I had been president, all of these wonderful things would have happened and none of these bad things would have happened. And he gets away with it. And most candidates aren't used to fighting somebody who does play by that very different set of rules. They don't really know how to handle it. So you've seen a couple of them, Jeb Bush in particular, trying to actually take some swings back at Donald Trump. But again, it's fighting an enemy that they don't quite fully understand.
Let's talk about Joe Biden, the Vice President of the United States. Everybody says, Jeff Zeleny, our reporter, he says that tonight he's going to have a big meeting with his top aides, make a decision imminently within the next few days. It's really, he's got to either do it or not do it because the clock is really ticking right now.
Well, the clock is ticking, but I think Joe Biden is owning the fact that he is going to do this on his own timeline, his own way. The family consideration was the first big hurdle, whether or not they'd be supportive. We know now that they're supportive and are urging him to do this. I think the other thing that we have to consider is, and I've said this over and over again, there are a number of Democrats who would be eager to see a third term for the President of the United States. Joe Biden is the closest thing to that third term.
More than Hillary Clinton, you think?
I think absolutely. She has now distanced herself in a number of ways from positive policy successes from this administration, including most recently TPP.
So of Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, from the Republican perspective, Kristen, who would be the greatest threat to a Republican, whoever that might be, being elected president?
You know, I think even though Hillary Clinton's favorables are not great among swing voters, I still think that she's building the kind of infrastructure and ground game that Republicans need to be very worried about. There's been a lot of talk about all of the quarterly financial reports that have come out, how much the campaigns have raised and spent. It shows that Hillary Clinton's raised a lot, certainly spent a lot of money, but if a lot of that's been on infrastructure and ground game, that's what I think Republicans really need to get nervous about, because at the moment they're all fighting one another in this very crowded primary field. Don't necessarily have the bandwidth to start building the kind of machine that she's putting together.
You notice, Angela, she's doing now what she really didn't do much in 2007, 2008 when she faced that stiff challenge from the junior senator from Illinois who eventually became president of the United States. She's talking about the fact she would be the first woman president of the United States. She really didn't make a big deal of it 7 and 8 years ago, but now she's making a big deal of it. You heard it repeatedly at that presidential debate.
I think that's 100% right, and part of the reason for that is there has to be something to excite the Democratic base. One of the things that the Democratic base very clearly gets excited about is making history. There are women groups like Planned Parenthood, like Emily's List, that have taken on this same pitch. It's time for a woman to be in the White House, and Hillary Clinton is writing that out, and she should. That kind of messaging goes over very well, not just with the party, but with young women who are undecided and leaning more independent.
Is that message going to do, it'll do well with Democratic women, obviously. What about independent women and maybe some moderate Republicans out there who would like the fact that, you know, it's been a long time, the United States should have a woman as president.
I think it's really going to come down to the issues. And I think there are a lot of women who say, I would love to see a female president, but I don't know if it has to be Hillary Clinton. And I think that by sort of riding on this message of you need to vote for me because I'd be an outsider, because I'm a woman, to me, that sort of rings a little bit hollow. I don't know if that's enough to do much more than energize the Democrats that already like Hillary Clinton.
I assume it would energize the Democrats, but let's see what Biden does in the next couple of days or so. Let's talk about Senator Bernie Sanders, doing remarkably well, coming out of almost nowhere. And our new poll, he says the top issue is the economy, Wall Street. The poll shows that Democrats trust Hillary Clinton a whole lot more on these issues than they trust Bernie Sanders. Look at this. They trust Hillary Clinton on who would best handle the economy, 48%, 29%, 13% for Biden, who is not yet a candidate. We'll see if he will be a candidate. And on national security and foreign policy, take a look at this, Angela. You'll see the numbers. Even a wider gap. 62% say they trust Hillary Clinton on foreign policy to only 20% for Biden, only 9% for Bernie Sanders. So he's got a lot of work to do on national security and foreign policy.
I think that's 100% right. And he's got a few weeks to prepare before the next debate. He's got to strengthen his answers because what he said, as you just said, rang hollow with the base, the folks who are watching that debate. You did not hear Bernie Sanders say anything convincing about, number one, his foreign policy experience and how he would handle that as commander-in-chief.
Angela Rye, thanks very much for joining us. Kristen Soltis.